Hello, my name is Mr. Pickard, and I'm the head of sports science here at Bluecoat Astley Academy. And I'm here today to talk to you about what studying A-level physical education would look like um, for you. And I'm going to take you through various slides that deal with the course and the content and how it's examined, etc. But here we go. So it is a 2-year course, so you study it in year 12 and carry it on through to year 13. There are 3 units of work, or we call them papers, or paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. And there's also the practical element, which is a sport, and also the EPIP or EAPI, but I will talk to you about those. So this is the course breakdown. As you can see here, it's divided into our 3 papers. So paper 1 being the physiological factors affecting performance, and these include anatomy and physiology, exercise physiology, and biomechanics and technology in sport. You can see here that's a 90-mark exam which lasts 2 hours that you'll take in year 13, and that forms 30% of your final grade. The next paper, as we call paper 2, this is the psychological factors affecting performance, and within here they deal with skill acquisition and sports psychology. You can see it's a 60-mark paper and takes an hour and forms 20% of your final A-level grade. The final paper or exam that you do is what we call paper 3, or social cultural issues in physical activity and sport. This includes sport and society and contemporary issues in physical activity and sport. As you can see, it's a 60-mark paper and lasts for 1 hour and forms 20% of your final grade. The final element of your course, which is NEA, non-examined assessment, is your performance and coaching. And that's one part of it is your actual performance in one sport, and also this evaluation of performance for improvement, or EAPI. So paper 1, as we can see here, as the physiological factors affecting performance. So this applied anatomy and physiology, where we look at bones, muscles, body systems, and how they work together. We look at exercise physiology, including the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, looking at energy systems, ergogenic aids, training methods. And also there is a biomechanical element in there where we look at applied movement analysis, and also laws of motion and laws of force and trajectory and velocity, and other elements like that. In paper 2, you look at the skill acquisition. So this might be the type of a skill, whether it's an open, closed, a self-paced or externally paced skill, whether it's a simple skill or not a simple skill. We look at types of practice, whether that's mass practiced or distributed practice. You look at the things like phases of learning on that. You'll also study some sports psychology. You might look at personality or individual differences, how groups and teams are formed, about goal setting. And the final element is this sport and society, where we look at the emergence of modern sports. We take a few sports and look at the history of, where that sport started and where it is now. You'll also look at the impact of global sporting events. For example, the European Football Championships or the Olympic Games that we're about to hold in Tokyo. The final one I wanted to look at and talk about is your NEA, or your non-examined assessment, and it comes in 2 parts. One of the parts is this evaluation of performance for improvement, or EAPI. This is where you basically do a live interview. It is recorded and you're shown a clip of someone performing in sport, and you talk about their strengths and weaknesses and how you are going to improve their performance. We call this a synoptic element, and synoptic means we draw in all the knowledge you've learned in your examined areas from paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3, and bring those into this interview and how you'd improve someone's performance through that from there. The final element of the course is the practical side, and you're basically assessed on one sport that you take part in. So, what do we expect from you and what do you expect from us? Well, the first thing really is this is a massive step up in knowledge from GCSE PE. The difference here is it's 3 exams, and that does form 70% of your final grade. If you've studied GCSE PE, you've kind of scratched the surface on a lot of the elements that we'll be studying A level PE, but we really delve down deeper into these parts and do some learning from there. Um, we kind of teach them in topics. So your first topic might be on the musculoskeletal system. And at the end of that topic, you'll do what's known as a topic test. And that'll be the same in paper 2 and be the same in paper 3. Literally, whenever we finish a topic of learning, we have a progress test on it. Now, this progress test doesn't go towards your final grade, but it is an expectation that you do this so we can keep track of your progress, and then we can work together to work out, your strengths and your weaknesses in particular papers or in particular topics to help you improve on that. You will be getting homework at least once a week from your theory lessons. But also that final part is it's an expectation that you are playing a sport outside of school, and that is at club level. So if you're part of a football team that plays regularly, say on a Saturday or on a Sunday, or a netball team, and you compete regularly, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. We're not talking about someone who goes to the park and has a kick around with their friends. We need you playing at club level because it does form part of your assessment. This slide shows us that last year, our 2020 leavers, 60% of our cohorts that were studying some form of sports science qualification, 60% of them use that qualification to go on to university. And you can see some of the universities that they went to and the kind of stuff that they're studying. There's lots of sport and exercise science courses out there. We've also had physiotherapists and sports coaches and things like that. But that just gives you an idea of what studying A-level P can lead on to directly after you've finished it. So the next few slides, I'm just going to take you through some sample learning that you might be doing in lessons, and I'll take them through unit by unit or paper by paper. So we're going to start off with paper 1, and this slide is just about, we do a lesson on the mechanics of breathing. What mechanics of breathing means is, how does our body, what muscles and bones work to literally help you breathe? And you can see here how we use muscles different to the normal ones we use if we're breathing during exercise. And we always split our work down between what happens during exercise to what happens during rest on there. The next slide we'll see really talks about how we transport gas around the body. You probably know already from biology or possibly GCSE PE that the gases we transport around are, we transport oxygen to our working muscles, and we transport carbon dioxide away from our working muscles. So we can see here how that's done, and we can see often it's carried within the red blood cell where we created oxyhemoglobin. Some of it is dissolved in plasma. Some of that oxygen is dissolved in plasma, and then it gets to that mitochondria within the muscle, and then how that carbon dioxide is then taken away back to the alveoli in our lungs. Talking about lungs, a typical lesson we might do on lung volumes, and we can see here we've got a spirometer trace of lung volumes, and we can see the changes that happen within the volume of our lungs when we start exercising. So this might be a normal breathing rate or a normal tidal volume, and we can see here now how that tidal volume changes due to exercise. So we might be doing some serious exercise here where we're taking big deep breaths in and out, and then obviously when we finish exercise we're in oxygen debt, so our breathing rate, our volumes have increased, but then slowly get back to this normal kind of tidal volume trace. And we talk about definitions and how those definitions relate to each other within the lungs. Moving on to paper 2, a typical lesson might be on mental practice, and we've got a nice graphic organizer here that tells us how we use mental practice and what it's there for. and we can see we've color coded it to the different parts within that mental practice. Another thing we might study in a typical lesson is this use of the psychological refractory period. And what this really means is, how does a fake shot work, or how dummying someone in football is successful? And if we read through and learn about it, it really is that brain dealing with the first stimulus it receives, and it has to deal with that stimulus first, and that's still going on while the second stimulus is appearing. So they've already gone up for that fake shot, and then you've gone around them, but that their brain and body are still dealing with that process first on there. And we can see some slides on that. We move to talking about personality in year 13, and what personality is made of, and how we might formulate a personality. And remember, these are very individual when we talk about someone's personality. So here are some types of personality, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, or you have a stable personality, or perhaps your personality is neurotic and can be changeable. And then talk about where we might formulate those personalities from. The final one really in this section is we might discuss how we formulate or gain an attitude. So this is triadic model, basically a triangle, and three things that might formulate this whole attitude to regular exercise. Bearing in mind that attitudes to regular exercise are very different between, say, someone who leads a sedentary lifestyle to someone who is perhaps an elite athlete. And we can see here, a cognitive model, a behavioral model, and an affective model, all going in to formulate this attitude to, say, regular exercise on there. The final paper you are going to study is this paper 3, which is the social and cultural issues, or the contemporary issues. And here we can see a typical lesson might be about the impacts of hosting a global sporting event. So you look at the Olympic Games that Tokyo are going to hold this year. The impact of that is going to have some very positive effects, but it's also going to have some negative effects. So positive effects might be, the massive increase in money that Japan are going to get from spectatorship, the legacy stuff that they might have from building new stadiums. But then it might also have some negative effects, like it can be, a magnet for protests, or perhaps, a terrorist event that might happen during that. So that's just a typical lesson on hosting a sporting event. Like I say, there's going to be a link to some transition work that we'd really like you to do, that will really, get you a taste of the kind of stuff that we're going to study come September. And I just want to finish with saying how excited I am, and I know my team are very excited about meeting you all and going on this learning journey with you. But thank you very much. Okay, goodbye.